Hello coders, good afternoon. I hope everybody's well. I am working through some of the unit tests at the moment, and we're going to be working through that and doing a bit of refactoring and just generally doing a little bit of the old PHP. Bear with me a minute. There we go. Couldn't get the music on. Yeah, so we have 297 unit tests so far, 437 assertions, or assertions. Assertions, that's what they're called. And I went down this rabbit hole a few nights ago. Let me just turn that down a wee bit. And I've refactored a lot of the managers, the entity managers, and I've basically moved a lot of code into the parent, the base classes, and I basically need to rewire some of them because they're in the old way, and I'm using testing to ensure that everything is working as expected. So let me just talk you through what I've done. It'll probably make more sense if I actually show you the code rather than just rabbit on. So here we've got, this is the API, this is the content management system. And in the SRC folder we have the manager. And in the manager we have a series of files, including a manager interface, a user manager interface, and an abstract manager. Now this is the magic, this is the thing that I've put it on to some of the managers here. I've extended those to the abstract manager. In the abstract manager we pass in the entity manager interface, which is the doctrine jobby, which is here, the doctrine ORM. We also have a get repository, that's an abstract method. So this means that every class that extends this abstract class requires this method. It must also return an object repository. Then we've got these methods. We've got delete and flush. We've also got delete. Now there is a very good reason why I've done this. So I'll explain afterwards. But we've got delete and flush. We've got delete. Difference being this one does a flush and this one doesn't. This one just does a remove. Delete calls remove. We also have flush itself. And we have update, which then does a save and flush. We have save and flush, which is save and flush. And we have save, which does a persistence. The reason why I've done all this is because sometimes you don't always want to flush the entity manager when you do a save. For instance, if you're running a script and you're going over a batch of stuff, then you might want to run a flush when your batch gets to a certain size, right? That's why I've got save and I've got save and flush. Same with delete and flush. The reason why I've got update in here is because some of the models require an update rather than a save. It's just the way that they've been set out. So this is kind of like allows me to do a bit of backwards compatibility. Later on I'll be deprecating this update to just be save or save and flush. Yeah. Hello, Marco. Thank you for joining today. I hope you're well. I hope you've had a good week so far. It's Thursday. Woohoo! Yeah. So this is the abstract manager, and let's pick on the category manager, for instance. This category manager extends the abstract manager and implements the manager interface. The manager interface, I should show you, is this thing here, which requires all of these things. So this is my way of ensuring that all the managers conform to this contract that we've laid out by this interface. There are other services that use these managers and they rely on these things. So they have to be in there. Okay, so we've got the category manager implements the manager interface, extends the abstract manager, and then here you have your individual methods, find by ID, get repository, that is the required thing from the abstract method. Then you've got find all and so on and so forth. Obviously, some of these classes have very different sets of things. So, for instance, they have that one that hardly has anything. It's just a create and a get repository. This one has a a find by ID, get repository. It's got a find by slug, find all package. Eventually, I'm going to move all this up, move the query builders up a level as well. So all these managers have to worry about is pushing on the parameters, the arguments to the relevant things that create the queries, which should technically be the repositories, not the actual managers themselves. So there's a lot of refactoring that I would like to do. This is kind of like one of the first parts of this, is to get all the required bits and pieces up into the abstract manager. So the manager interface also has a create routine. So this is where you create the entity, and this must return an entity interface. The entity interface is just a sort of a generic interface that all entities should implement. And again, I can then pass that through to other services that require some of the methods needed here. Okay, then we've got the profile. Let's walk this train. So we've got category, we've got contact. Let's just make sure they all extend. Course manager does, course view does, profile does, resource, subscription, tag I think does, yep. Tutorial I believe does as well, yep. I'm not sure about tutorial view. No, it doesn't. Tutorial view and the actual user itself doesn't. Now this one's going to be an interesting one, the user manager, because this extends the FOSS user manager. So this is going to be an interesting one to try and work through. I'm not too sure how I'm going to solve this kind of dependency issue going on here. Kind of wish this was Python in a way, because then you could have multiple inheritance, but it's not. So let's just deal with the tutorial view first. What I need to do is extend the abstract manager and implement the manager interface, and then alter some of the bits and pieces in here. Like for instance, we will delete this constructor. All of that will go. This will change to use it to return the entity interface as a return rather than the actual entity itself. And then what do we do? Yeah, the update will change. The save will go. Yeah, all those things. And what I'm doing as we go is I'm adding tests to ensure that these things conform to how I want them. If we ran this, but we did this with coverage, like so. This will run those tests again, but with a coverage report. And I think I ran this last time, so it's going to be the same output, I believe. When I show you the output, when I refresh the page, it probably will be the same. But we'll see. So all of these should pass. Yes, they do. And we'll wait for the report to run. There we go. And we'll wait for the XML files and everything to be generated. This is the thing that takes the longest. It's getting these reports out. So obviously I won't be running code coverage all the time. So, okay, we got the reports out, and if I open this up, I refresh the page, yep, 64% code coverage, and we're dealing with the managers. You can see, you can see there's 12% covered there, so not a lot. But of course, this touches upon Doctrine. This touches upon the other, well, yeah. The database touches the database, so and obviously the unit tests don't touch the database because that's not a unit test. the unit tests for the managers, they mock certain elements of Doctrine to allow for the code to actually pass. So if we clicked into here, I'll show you how I'm working this. So you'll see a lot of them have relatively the same level of code coverage. That's because they've got they're covering the same kind of things. But you can see here that tutorial manager, tutorial view, and user manager. Oh, we should probably do tutorial manager first, to be fair. They need to be done. If I was to pick on one of these, for instance, let's say the category manager, if we scroll down here, we can see that that's being tested. It returns an entity interface. That's correct. We can see that this isn't touched at all. This is going to be fairly tricky to do. I'm going to have to mock out the get repository and the find one by routines. There's obviously things in here we need to test, like making sure that is active is null, then the parameter active is set, and also make sure that these are decision points in the code, right? So you got to test these out. Get repository is tested. Again, the find all needs to be touched upon as well. Although that's going to be a tricky one. It returns an array, but it returns an array based upon find by. So that's going to be an interesting one to test when I get to it, if I get to it. The course view, similar story. Get repository. So here we haven't got a test yet for the throwing of an exception. However, that to me looks like a code smell, so I probably need to tidy that up. And then we've got the create or update. Again, this is something that's for refactoring. So what I would do is set this to deprecated, because we shouldn't be having a method create or update. There's too many decision points here. Create or update. You just have two methods, create and then another one called update. Okay, find course by user. Again, that's going to be it's kind of a similar story as the other one I showed. So there's going to be a little bit of code refactoring whilst I go through all this. Right, but first up, we need to check the tutorial manager, the tutorial view manager, and then the user manager. That's kind of the way I want to go through this. And we might get to the user manager tonight, I don't know. Although that's going to be a tricky one to play with. I just want tests to cover these things because these will deal with the base class. And then once I've got to that point, we'll then say, okay, let's now test and find a way to test all the find by IDs. Right, tutorial manager. We've got a create from array, we've got a create, we've got a find by, and we've got a get repository. So we can do get repository, we can do create, we could probably potentially do, because this isn't actually saving, we can do create from array as well. Let's have a nosy. So if we go over to what am I looking at? I'm looking for the tests unit manager. Here we go. We want to look for. We'll copy that in. Kind of similar setup. This is going to be tutorial manager. There we go. And what I do is just grab that, copy that, press Control R, Command R, because I'm on a Mac, and then change this to be tutorial. Replace all. Okay, so we want to change that to be tutorial manager, right? And that should return a tutorial. And then down here we got tutorial save, which is going to be running off of the base class. So we do another tutorial manager. This is going to instantiate a new tutorial. And this is tutorial. It should return itself back. So the tutorial manager should be returned. Okay, get repository. This should be... So this is a mocked repository, tutorial manager. No, that's not right. That should be tutorial repository. That is the tutorial manager. There we go. And this should return, if we run a get repository, should return a tutorial repository. There we go. Okay, let me go up to the imports and tidy those up. Good. And let me just run that test and see if we did the same with code coverage. And it should be, we should have covered that off, and we should have covered that off. And I guess really on this kind of first pass of testing is just to ensure that some of it works. I'm not sort of doing it class by class, because that would take too long. And as I'm going, I'm finding patterns, you see. Like, for example, the tutorial manager test extends a manager test base. And that test base obviously extends the unit, but this test base has these kind of little helper methods in. So, for example, mocking the entity manager and mocking the repository. These are the things that I put in earlier. So, for example, this mock repository, you pass in the repository name, the class name, oh, sorry, the manager name, beg your pardon. Actually, no, that's wrong. That should be... See, I'm finding issues now. That should be... repository name, class name. There we go. So, it should be the class name that you want to mock, and then calling get repository should return that mock based on what you've supplied. So for example, if I go to here, we're passing in the tutorial repository class, and then calling get repository off of the manager that we've just instantiated should return tutorial repository class, in theory. Okay, so let's have a look. Did that all go through? Yes, 300 tests. Sweet, we got to a 300. Woo! And what I'm going to do is just refresh. And yeah, we've got the get repository, that's done. The create is done as well. Just gonna... Don't know why, but my stream just dropped. I don't know why. On Twitch, the website just froze, so I just refreshed. Okay, so I guess the next thing we can do is test out this create from action. Off of the back of this, but I think what I'm going to do, actually thinking about this, is I'm going to still work down this. Let's just refresh that. There should have been a tutorial. There we go. There's some in there. Let's do the tutorial view manager first, because it's very similar. It's very, very similar. Yep. So this is kind of like the real test, right? Because this is now me doing some proper refactoring. So what I'll do... Stream has dropped again. Brilliant. Never mind. I'm just gonna keep working. I'm gonna keep working. If you guys can hear me, then awesome. I can see the bit rate is tanking, mind. Can I am I doing... No, I'm not. Usually around this time, I'm doing some sort of time machine backup, but it's not doing it at the moment, which is good. Right, what was I doing? It was a tutorial view. So we're going to grab this and we're going to paste this into here, and this is going to be tutorial view manager test. Tutorial view. Oops. Manager test. Again, we're going to grab that. Oops, that was the wrong button. I pressed Command H, not Command R. And we're going to change that to tutorial view, like so. Change that to tutorial view. let's change the import as well. Whilst I'm at it, I'll change that import and that import as well. Excellent. And that is tutorial view. And that is tutorial view. Let's put that on the clipboard. Paste that into there. That should be tutorial view. So these tests are very like just making sure that the code is scaffolded in the right way. That's all. Because what I'm going to do now, is we'll just run those tests again. I'm not going to do it with code coverage this time. I'm just going to run the units and just see, because I haven't done any refactoring yet. I've just added the test or tests. Let's see, where do we go? Okay, yeah, so we have a failure. We have a failure. This one here, failing to assert that a mock is an instance of tutorial view manager. This is on tutorial view on test on line 54. Line 54, which is this one. Oh, no. That's a copy and paste error. There we go. Right, let's run that again. So with any luck, that should all pass. Hopefully. Excellent. Now what I can do is refactor the code and then run this again, and this will ensure that my refactoring hasn't broken anything. So what I'm going to do in tutorial view, which is this one, what I need to do is I need to basically copy all that in. This error is an issue with PHP Storm that I will have to obviously figure out at some point. So the refactoring is this. We delete that, the constructor and the property, and this gets changed to entity interface. Actually, no. Let's get rid of that for a second. Let's get rid of that's ORM. No, let's get rid of that too. So we need to return entity interface. Here we go. That goes in there. That is going to return a new tutorial view. Like so. Now this tutorial view entity does need to implement the entity interface. We'll do that in a second. Okay, this is now going to return tutorial view or null, and we can change that to this as well. Okay, this needs to be changed. Yeah, tutorial. Yeah, okay, that needs to be a tutorial, not a tutorial view. And this needs to be a user. And this is the tutorial view. Excellent. So this here is the tutorial. This becomes the user, which is or null. This is the user down here. And this is a tutorial view. Likewise, that is tutorial view. That's the tutorial. Whoa! Magic Mouse getting a little bit overexcited. All of this refactoring work. I see why I've done. I added the. I see why I put the entity in there. It's just to make sure that all the entities, the namespaces, work like that. That's fine. What's going on here? Why is that red? Oh, this is on the update. Fair enough. I'll deal with that in just a second. Tutorial view. That's on the save routine. Okay, this is the routine that we can get rid of. Bye-bye. Right, so there is the update that needs to be fixed. That's fine, that looks okay, I think. And this, yeah. Let's deal with that. That needs to implement the entity interface. If we went back to here, that should now be okay. Okay, let's tidy that up, make sure my imports are correct. They are. Ah, and I look saturated. Why is that? Let me see if I was to. Does that look better? I'm doing all right, thank you. I'm doing fine. How are you doing, Exabyte? I think it's because I'm... Let me change... Let's put that back on. Bear with me a second. That might be too dark on this side. I think that's as best as I can get it, unfortunately. Okay, let me scroll down to here. We got to fix the update routine. Oh, nice! Design-driven development. I can't say I've ever really kind of done it in sort of in anger, you know. So if I was to run this, it will probably fail. Yep. And I bet this is about the update, which it is. So it needs to be compatible with this, where you just pass in the entity interface, which is the entity. Yeah. So what are we doing here? We're updating the tutorial view. Passing in the tutorial as well. Tutorial view, set tutorial, add to counter. User is an instance of user. Then we set that as well. Okay. It's not really an update. See, these kind of changes, these refactorings, they kind of do highlight code smells. It's doing more than just an update. You're almost incrementing. Add to counter, the view count. And I bet that does... Yeah, it does an incrementation. It increments it. So... And then it does a save. So this should be a save and flush. Domain. What did I say? Design-driven development or something daft. I have this massive book on the topic. It says Patterns, Principles and Practices of Domain-Driven Design. I got so many books to go through. Right, so this is doing a little bit more than just an update. So I think I need to call this something else. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find where this is called. So this is Tutorial View Manager. This would probably be in the SRC. Finding path. Just trying to look for where manager, that's a mock. Oh, please tell me this is actually being used. Another thing that I've been finding a lot is a load of dead code. Code that just isn't used. No, I wouldn't say they make them obsolete. They make certain things obsolete, but they don't make all of them obsolete. For example, you wouldn't know that this throws an exception just by looking at the code, right? So here you can see that it throws an exception. And also, not all of the data types and stuff are sort of there. Okay. Why? Why do we have an update? Come on. Nothing's found. Really? Okay, that's annoying. There's must be something else in the path. Update. Nothing. Apparently this method is not even being used. Has update. I think I may have just found some dead code. Customer service. Nope. How weird. Okay, let me just think about where this possibly could be. If we remove it and a test fails, then there we go. That's the thing. But let's just see how we can find this out. If we go to controller and then go to, it would be probably API. There's tag. There's customer. Course view. This would be tutorial view, wouldn't it? And we don't appear to have an API for tutorial view. I reckon I've found a pocket of code that I created that isn't used. I probably went down a random tangent thinking, oh, I'm going to use this. And I can't find the API for it. Let's try a course view. No worries. My beautiful English accent. No worries. Yeah, I reckon if there isn't a test for it, if there isn't an actual controller for it, then why is there a manager for it? And by that extension, why is there an entity for it? I mean, could it be in here? Do we have any tests on tutorial view? Let's go to it'll be APIs. So we've got course view. We don't have anything for tutorial. There's nothing in here for nope, there's nothing in the integration. And no, there's nothing in the units. So I reckon I found a pocket of code that I can just get away with, get rid of, remove, which is great. That's going to increase the code coverage because there's going to be yes, exactly. Do not code stuff that you don't need. Yeah, so I bet what I've done is I've created the entity and I created the manager, and then I just I guess what I should do is let me just take a look at my Jira. Do I have this as a task? Because if I have this on the backlog, then obviously it's code that I'm kind of wanting to do, which would make sense. But let's do tutorial view. Is there anything there? There is no bugs. There's one. Hang on. Added a deactivate button tutorial view page. What's that about? This should go into the right hand side of the table. This is for the content management system. Okay. Okay. What? Well, that in itself doesn't make any sense. And that just shows how poorly I am at actually creating tasks. So I'm just gonna jump onto the staging CMS and just have a little nosy around. Oh gosh, every time. Guess the password. There we go. Yeah, Yagni. You ain't gonna need it. You ain't gonna need it. There's also not invented here. There's a whole bunch of acronyms, isn't there? Okay, this would be in tutorials. And I guess we would just, or would it? If we clicked on, is that going to go straight? That's going to go to how to code well. Yeah, that's the thing. If we go to show on one of these things, I don't have views here. No, so I don't actually have anything to do with views in here. I just want to. I'm going to have a little look on customers for a minute. That's why I've taken it down here. Okay. Nope, nothing in here. There isn't even anything on the actual courses themselves. So I think I'm okay to get rid of it. I reckon. If this class isn't even instantiated anywhere. Let's get rid of it. There we go. And let's quickly run those tests. It's always good to keep your code nice and lean and clean. This is why I like refactoring. We don't give ourselves enough time to refactor the code that we create. In fact, I'm going to have to delete that test, aren't I? Because it's going to be testing a class that can't be tested because it doesn't exist anymore. Let me get rid of that a second. Wherever the delete button's gone. Where has that gone? Safe delete. Just get rid of it. Thank you. Yeah. So let's rerun those tests again. Oh. Group manager. Ah. Oh. What? I think this is something to do with the cache of Codeception. I think. Let me just jump on the box. Docker compose, I think that's right, Docker compose exec of API going in as bash, and from here we're going to do a cd into tests, and we'll have a little noodle about. So support data output, integration, blah 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 blah, ls of output, ls of, I don't think date support, maybe? No, data. Okay, no. Let's jump up a one and then do... Thank you for following, visible clan member. Do make yourself visible. Or viable. Well, make yourself viable and visible. That A looked like an S. Yeah. I've been learning PHP Unit 2, 3 hours into it. I've just tried Bhat 2. Any thoughts? Bhat, definitely. Bhat is awesome. Apologies for getting your name wrong. Oh, the book I've just I posted out. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's a beefy book. You're on chapter 2. Right. What was I doing? Bin. I want to see if there's any code set. Help. I want to see if there's any help documentation for clearing the cache, because I'm sure there is. There's always forget to do this. List out the commands. So what have we got? We got clean. Recursively cleans the log and generated code. I think that's what I need to do. Let's try that. Done. Okay. So now if I came out of the container and then ran that again, is this still going to fall flat on its face? Just because I removed that test? No, it's not. Okay, excellent. Off it goes. Oh, working with legacy code. Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, yeah. Why not? This one, you mean? Yeah. Sure. I mean, I'm currently reading other books at the moment, but I will be definitely getting to that. That's such a good idea. Jitter Ted, he's awesome. He really is. He's been on the podcast as well. He's a really good guest. So every week we have a podcast on how to code well, and he was last year. I think it was last. What was it? Last October? Yeah, here we go. Last November. Sorry. Yeah. That is the link to the podcast if you want to listen to me interviewing Ted, Jitter Ted. Fascinating development story between me and him, or well, his development story, I should say. But yeah, I need to spend. I need to wrap up the book that I'm currently on. I'm on Technically Wrong. Okay, so... Hey, Sir Skull Legend. That's an awesome name. Right, we've just ran those tests and they've all passed. They passed after I deleted that file, so that's all good. A beautiful PHP code. You make me laugh. Okay, so let me think. We've just deleted that. Let's run this with code coverage, because I want to see where we're at with that. And I think we've got the user manager to do, and that's going to be real tricky because that has to extend the base class of FOSS user, and we are using PHP and not Python, and therefore we can't use multiple inheritance, and there's no way I can do it with a trait. So you thought I was idling. No, I was thinking. Sometimes oh right. You thought it was frozen. Hey, Mr. DB303, thank you for joining. I think the user manager is going to have to be a special case that can't follow these rules, unfortunately, because it's just so ingrained with the FOSS user. Anyway, where did we get with that? That's been generated. So if we go over back to here, and I guess we should come out of this because that's not going to exist anymore, and refresh this. That's gone. So we've got the tutorial manager. It's just this that needs to be done, but I can't extend our base manager. I have to extend their base manager. It's just the way it's set up. I could implement. Ooh, now this is interesting. I could implement the user manager here. Where's that? What does that live? The user manager is. Let's just get back into the code. That's probably easier. So the user manager implements the user manager interface, which I think is that one, which extends the base user manager interface. Right. And that is probably going to be, yeah, FOSS. Damn. Alright, so what we can do with PHP, obviously, is we can implement more than once. So we can implement the manager interface, which is our interface, and we'll just make sure that we're not breaking any rules here. So Why is that static? We are breaking rules. I'm looking for a create routine in this one. Do we have a create routine? We got create user. But we don't have a static create routine. Why is it static? Why have I done that statically? When did I... No, I don't have a date on this. This is probably one of those ones I did years and years ago. That's weird. Okay, anyway. So that needs to change. This needs to change. That's going to run the update user, which is on here, which is required. Okay, let's go back to this in a second. So that will change. The delete will also have to change. Does this have to conform? Okay, no, that's fine. Then the find, that's fine. This is all good. Save user. Please say that there isn't a save user and there's an update. Right, so save user and update. Do we have those in here? We've got save user, yes, and we've got update. Let's go over to here. We got delete user. Update user. Update password. Okay. All right. I think these are just my methods. All right. Okay. Okay. Obviously, this is gonna just fail miserably. So I'm a big fan of PHP Stan, so for example, if I was to not implement this, so if I've got a I've got a make file with all of my code auditing bits and pieces in. If I was to run make tests, for instance. That's going to run code style, security checks, mess detector, static analysis, which is PHP Stan, validation of the doctrine entities, clearing the cache, and then run all the tests. So that's kind of my main gatekeeper, if you will. Before any of the code gets pushed to any other branch, I run this make file. Whoops, this make command, not nuke. This one, make tests. But if I ran, I think I've defined it up here. Static analysis. This is going to run Docker Compose, PHP Stan analyze, based on the container API, which is the container I'm working with. So if I was to just grab that for a second, and then let's just clear the screen down, and then ran make static analysis. Now this is going to run. It's going to run PHP Stan, and it's going to use the PHP Stan.neon, which is this here. So it's going to run it in against level 8, and you can see that it's all done. It's all clear. It's all good. Thank God for that. But yeah, it's handy this, because you can start putting in different sort of rules. So for example, I'm excluding all the migrations. This is a pattern that I'm ignoring, a warning. You can always also set where the autoloader files live, and other bits and pieces. So yeah, I'm a fan of Stan. Sorry, just going through the comments. What's this? There is something up with your stream. Oh dear. I thought it was on my end, but since it is getting the same problem, I had to downgrade the quality. The audio doesn't stop, but the video freezes on high quality. Maybe a bitrate problem. Yeah, I've been having bitrate issues all day. Well, all stream. don't think I can change the bitrate whilst I'm streaming. I doubt it. But no. Yeah, I will definitely double check this before the next stream, which is on Sunday. Oh, here we are. Bitrate. That is down. I'll reduce it a wee bit more. There we go. Yeah, odd. I do apologise. Any thoughts on using reflection classes when it comes to dependency injection in PHP? Always precompile, or can you do dependency injection without reflecting? Yes, you can. Yeah. So what you would do, it's a bit like this, really. You would inject your dependencies. I guess this is what you're talking about. Okay, that sucks about the 480p. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to leave the user manager alone, I think. I can probably implement our interfaces, but I'm going to have to do some jiggery-pokery around the actual... I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this one. I'm going to leave it because it's going to be a bit complicated. And really, what I want to try and achieve, if I was to run coverage, I'm trying to tackle all the low-hanging fruit as much as possible. And I know that sounds a bit daft and weird, but basically I want to circle all the difficult areas of code, because then I'll know what the difficult areas of code are. And I've just come across one, which is the user manager. So with Symfony, so Symfony being the framework that I'm using here, has its own container that you can use to do that. And you set that up using the Symfony services.yaml. Okay, come on. Right. So where are we at with this? Let's go all the way back to the index here. Okay, we're at 65%. Excellent. So we could probably do some progress around the forms. Let's have a look at the mailer for a second. So we inject, so that would require me to mock all this out, which is annoying. And then this does a run, which is going to send the email. This one here, this runs send, sorry, so that run just is basically a facade back into this, setting the mailer and the make. That's a factory. So making the email based on the user and the data that was supplied. And then here we do this mailer send. So that's going to be another interesting one to test. I suppose the mailer factory, what's this about? So with PHP 8, I'm looking forward to changing this to using the match rather than the switch. Okay. Repository. There's a number of repositories that need to do a little bit more work around. Again, these are the find by jobbies. And what I would like really is the managers to communicate back to the repositories to do the queries. I shouldn't be having any queries in the managers themselves, and there's quite a lot, like find all, for instance. That should just be passing to a method in the repository, which it kind of is, but with defined properties, not just, here's an array of stuff, There was one that was really bad, wasn't there? I had earlier. Let's see. Is it course manager? Somewhere was doing a query builder. Yeah, this, for instance, doing a query builder. This really should be in the repository. It shouldn't be in the manager one bit. So that's something I wouldn't mind tackling at some point. Okay. The response. So we got the processes. So that's all done apart from get links, pagination, and the actual process method itself. So we're instantiating an instance of encoder. And then, so this is going to be tricky to test because we're doing this within the actual method itself. We're not injecting this in, which is annoying. And then here, these are the things that you would test. If is array, else, and then return, and then test the actual encoder itself. Depending on whether or not there's any kind of accessor methods to these things. But the thing that I'm really kind of hitting here is the fact that I'm testing after the fact that it's done. None of this is TDD. This is kind of Stripe is an interesting one. I'll have to tackle that off stream. Utils, there's nothing in here for utils. The JSON handler. So we inject a logger interface, and this method here decode the request, passing in the request. It tries to do a JSON decode, stringifying or casting the request to a string. It's going to be an array with a depth of 512. So we will be testing that if the decoder returns an empty string, then we get actually an empty array. So it's always going to be an array that gets returned. And then here we do that. So what we should do really is throw some rubbish at this. At the content. So we should create our own request and throw rubbish at it into the content, and then pass it into here, and then just make sure that we're catching the right stuff. So this is going to throw stuff into the logger, but this here, so we would have to mock the logger out, but we would have to check that that's actually throwing an exception. So that's how I would do it on that one. Sorry, I'm just seeing the questions. Let me go through them. What's the best for large projects, Laravel or Symfony? My vote is for Symfony. I'm a freelance developer and I work mostly on Symfony, because I work mostly in the enterprise sort of areas. However, saying that, I do have done Laravel and Lumen. Why return false instead of letting the exception bubble? Where did that go? Is this here? Why return false? No, it's not here, is it? Because that's going to always return an array. Must have been on something else that I was looking at. Right, so it wasn't going to be there. Was it the response? JSON API processor something. It was a while ago. Oh, sorry. See, this is bad This is a bad code smell. Naughty me. I'm hard coding things in here. This should see what I should do is in the constructor method, which we don't actually have. Do we extend anything? No, we don't. See, I'm hard coding that there. I should be passing. I should be injecting this in as a parameter. Because that's the wrong URL. Not that anything. No, that is the wrong URL. That is. Ugh. So, no, let's not. Let's go back to the mailer. Some real interesting pieces of code here. Kind of looking at this thinking, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? What was I smoking when I did this? Anything else for the schema? Lots of stuff with the schemas. See, all of this is pretty easy to test, to be honest. I mean, it's just like... Does it return code? Yes. Is it an instance of code? Then return a string, which is the ID. Or does it return empty? And then making sure the attributes return okay. And it's very similar with all of them, which kind of makes me feel like there could be an element of refactoring here. If the resource base schema extends base schema, get by ID. Why is get ID not in the base schema? Where is base schema? Okay. All right. So a way I would get around this little issue here is to create an abstract class above. Let's do that. So we have an abstract class above, which is like abstract schema, which extends the base schema that has the methods get ID and get relationships. Because they're all the same, aren't they? And we could have an abstract method called getType. Let's see about this. So we would have getType in here. That's fine. Again, we would have getID, and of course, if course registration implemented, if it implemented an interface, then we would just say if resource is an instance of that interface that had the getID on there. That would mean that would be one less method. Obviously, the get attributes is going to be required, and the get relationships is going to be different based on which schema it is. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm having a look at all of the code that I created a long time ago, and I'm shaking my head. Let's tackle this. So this is in, where is this? This is schema, isn't it? Let's take a look at the schemas. Schemas. SRC. Schemas. Right. Let's just grab that, paste that above, and we have tests for some of these, not all of them, so we will at least know that some of them would have broken. And let's change this to be abstract schema. Let's change that to be an abstract class. Right, so this abstract class requires has the get get ID. That is going to be mixed, and this is going to say entity interface. If it's in an instance of entity interface, then we'll get that, else it's going to be this. That should be fine. We need to have an abstract public method, which is getType. We also need to have an abstract public method of getAttributes, because these are going to be different for each, but it must return an iterable. And I think that's going to be okay. Let's get rid of that for a second. And also an iterable abstract method for getRelationships. Okay, so I think that's kind of gonna cover it for now. Let's extend base schema, which we are. That's good. And then what we can do is in categories, in this one, if we extend abstract schema like so, we can do away with, hopefully, get ID. That's all good. That's all good as well. Yep. We'll check codes PHP stan in a second. I might as well just run through them all. So if we changed that to be abstract schema, we can do away with this. In fact, because I've just seen more than one method that has just returning a blank array, why don't I change this so it's not an abstract method, it's just a method. We pass in a mixed response and a context interface, and it returns an array. Which means that we can do away with this, and we can do away with this. So really what we have here is the type and the attributes. Let's have a look at attributes and the type. Yep. Okay, let's walk down the chain. So we've got context. That's something else. We don't want to be playing around with that. That's something else. Course registration. If we extend the abstract schema. Hydrate. Thank you very much. I'm on some like weird summer fruits thing. It's nice. Okay, so course registration. We can do away with that. And we do need this. Course schema. Abstract schema. Again, off you go. Get relationships. Yeah, that has a lot of relationships. This is where I do all the work. I really should run a test, right? Just to make sure that this is actually working. Let me do that. Right, let me just quickly run a test before I go through the others. We'll do it without code coverage for now. Fingers crossed I haven't broken anything. I probably have, knowing me. Hey, all of them passed. Ah, that's good. Why did they use a backslash for namespaces? Have I figured out a way to see code coverage in Gutter? How do you mean in Gutter? I don't understand. Do you mean like in the actual, in PHP Storm? Yeah, there's some settings that you can tweak on that. I'm gonna run code. I just prefer the command line. I'm a bit of a command line freak, to be honest. I feel like I got more control. IDEs are great, don't get me wrong, I love them to bits, but you have to sing to their hymns on their hymn sheet. You know, if they do an update and it breaks your workflow, whereas I can just get into a command line and I can just run my own commands and I know that they work. That's why I don't use like the database bits and pieces. I know that a lot of people, they just love all the bells and whistles within their IDE, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But yeah, I like to keep things nice and simple. So I just ran the code coverage, and let's just refresh. That's good. So abstract schema is fully tested. Okay, good. And I just out of interest, because we're starting to delete files now, or you know, not files, but actual methods. We're still on 65. That's okay. All right, let's continue down our little merry journey here. So I am extending to abstract schema, and I'm doing away with the get ID and the get relationships that just are empty arrays. Totally pointless. Scaffold code. Now, no, I need to keep that as something else. Now, we've just been testing unit tests, of course. There's APIs and integration tests that obviously hook into all of this, and we will find very soon if I've broken any of those, and I bet you I have. But let me just go through all of this first. I bet I have broken those relationships. That's good. Subscription plan. This also allows me in the future to add things to these base classes later down the line. That can go. Let's just extend abstract schema a second. And that can go as well. And tutorial. Do I count generative tests with unit? How do you mean? I've never heard of those kind of tests before. Give me an example. My answer is probably not, whatever it is. Okay, I think that's all I can do with that. Okay, right. Let me just quickly run those tests again. We'll do it with units. We'll do it with code coverage. Then I'll run PHP stan, and then I'll run all the other tests that touch the database and make the API, the actual physical raw API calls. I think 300 tests is a good place to kind of draw a line this evening. Before I get into the APIs and the integration tests, because they're the things that, I mean, the unit tests are great because they're like small little tests that just test inputs and outputs. IPOs, input output processes, whereas the actual API tests and the integration tests, they are, I guess you would call them, more functional. Okay, good, that's done. Okay, we're back to 58. I don't know why that reduced itself, but okay, whatever. It went down. No matter, I'm not chasing code coverage. I'm not one of those people who want, it must be 100%. No. So that's fine. Just give me a report, then I can see what needs to be tested and what's already tested. We're now going to run PHP stan. I'm going to do first. Let's do static analysis first, right? Yeah. So PHP stan. Hopefully this is all going to be good. Nope. Okay, there is an undefined method, entity interface get ID and abstract schema. Oh. Okay. Ah, right. Yes, we do need to do that. And if I was to think about it in the entities. Let's pick on this one, for instance. It implements that, but it uses a trait which is the UUID trait, which we have the getID, which is that's what I needed. Yeah. Of course. Okay, right, let's run that stan again. Oh. Seriously? Call to an undefined method at line 15. I've never heard of that. Never heard of that one. John Hughes quick check. I will write that down though. If I can move my notebook. John Hughes. Is that with a HN. Quick check. Quick check. I will look that up. It's like set first name, and it takes a string instead of testing just for a. Oh, are you? Okay. Okay. Yeah. I think you're talking. Well, maybe you're talking about mutation testing. Which is something that I would love to do, and I do plan to do once I want to really get to about 80% code coverage before I start mutation testing. And for that, I'm going to use infection. PHP. So this is a great great resource. Put it in the chat there. So this mutates the potential test cases, like half fuzzy and stuff like that, like you just mentioned. Okay, I've broken something. Call to an undefined method, app entity interface get ID. Pretty sure I've got it there. So don't understand. Is that I don't know that, no. I don't know that. But for that, I would probably use a git hook, a pre-commit hook. So that's saying it's a call to an undefined method. It's not saying on null, it's just saying that that's an undefined method. App entity interface. Unfortunately, this has to be a mixed, I think. If we went to base, is this it implements a schema interface, I think. Yeah, there's get ID, and it has to be mixed, unfortunately. So I can't force that to be an entity interface. It has to be mixed. That's the problem when you start using third-party bits and pieces. You kind of have to do what they say. So we're returning either the get ID toString or an empty string if the resource is an instance of entity interface. The problem I've got here is that entity interface by PHP stands thinking on line 15 has an undefined method called getID, which simply isn't the case because it's there. My IDE knows where it is. Very odd. If it is an entity interface, so it knows, the error knows that I'm working on an entity interface. But it's saying that that doesn't exist. This is one of those things that live coders have to deal with. It's kind of like it's going to be a very small, simple, blatantly obvious fix that I'm completely overlooking. Okay. All right. Public function get ID. Returns a string or null. Hang on a minute. Why does it return null for a start? That doesn't make sense. This isn't returning null, it's returning a string regardless. That's always going to be a string. That's always going to be a string. So why is it returning null? Do I have to return null? I have to return null. Ugh. Oh no, I've just pressed Control W and I've just removed Control S. What do you mean? Control save? So that doesn't. Does that mean I have to return null here? Obviously, this is still going to fail. Okay. Now I'm very confused. Let's just change that to an empty string. Sorry, an empty string, not a string of null. Okay, that's very weird. It's just started to work. I haven't got the UML report running. How would you do that? Oh, I need a plugin, I think. Apparently I've got it. Okay, so that's that. Right, so the PHP stan is now working. I don't know why it didn't before, but it is now. So there you go. Right. I'm feeling a kind of brave. Let's do tests themselves. Now this is going to do a bunch of stuff. So this is going to do PHP beautifier to make sure the code is nice and clean, and we can see that there's some fixes that need to be done. If I ran this again, it will, well, these have already been fixed. There's an issue here with tutorial schema mind. One is remaining. But apparently that's passed. Okay, fair enough. So this one is then doing mess detection. Now it's doing PHP stan. And we should, yeah, that's passed. Okay, here we go. Right. So now it's doing doctrine schema validate. Declaration of app entity get ID must be compatible with entity get ID interface. This is on the user. Ah. Yeah, I think I may have found a problem. Because the user entity, damn, which is here, it extends the base user and the base, which is doctrine, which is FOSS. There we go. And this is get ID, right? Get ID. Yeah, I've got a horrible feeling. Yeah, get ID doesn't have a return type. Oh, damn, I thought I could do this. Oh, that sucks. That sucks. So, FOSS, which is the plugin I'm using for, or the bundle I should say, the user bundle, to deal with user accounts on the website, has a get ID, and my model class here extends that, and therefore it doesn't have, it doesn't have that. It doesn't have that trait. It just has an ID, which is a UUID, which is fine. Okay. Can I get around this somehow? Can I do if the resource is an instance of entity interface, or the resource is an instance of user interface? Is that going to work? Let's run that again. These little workarounds. Get user ID must be declaration of app entity user, get ID. It's the declaration. Why though? There's nothing in there to on the actual user, it's not. That's the issue. Right, let's try it again. Come on, come on, come on, go green, go green. Okay, controller, auth controller. It's all around the user. It's all around the user. User maker, save. This is in end app, entity maker, user maker, and we're passing in make, no, save. Yeah. Do we extend anything here? We've got an interface, and we got the save routine. I see the problem. I see. It's because we got get ID from the FOSS user, which is the base. That has a different method signature to my entity interface. That's annoying. Kind of need to sort of almost wrap the entity into something, like decorate it. Yeah, but then I would have to change a lot of stuff to rewire that. Oh, that's so annoying. Working with the FOSS stuff can be quite painful. I guess a way around this is to... I don't like doing this. Is to say, I'm going to have to tidy up these. This is mixed. Ah, that's a pain. That needs to, that manager. Entity interface. User manager interface. Oh, this is going to fail miserably. Right, let's try that again. I think I'm going to have to create some form of adapter or something to allow me to wrap the FOSS user stuff in around. Yeah. Okay, save has a parameter entity with no type hint specified, so that's the entity maker interface, which was what we were just playing with. Entity maker interface. That needs to be mixed. Let's just do static analysis. And then we got the user manager interface update has, it's the same, oh, is it the same issue? Yeah, well, type int update, user manager interface. User manager interface, this thing here. Okay, good. And I'm just going to test the unit. Don't worry with code coverage. Just going to make sure the units work. Nope. Oh, come on, man. Declaration of updates. Okay, app entity interface user must be compatible. This is the user manager. Oh, okay. So the actual the concrete class itself. Fair enough. I just missed that. Okay, that should be okay. It should just be this one, and it's the somewhere down here. There's the update routine here. Yeah, so this is now mixed. Not ideal. Not ideal. Okay. I think we're cooking. We're cooking again. Okay, good. Okay, let's run the tests, all of them. So we got PHP beautifier, code beautifier, and then we've got check styles. This is also going to do some security checks. Now we're doing PHP mess detection. Now we're doing PHP stan, which we know should pass. Now we're doing doctrine schema validate, making sure that my entities haven't changed the doctrine schema at all. Should be good. Should. The mapping, that's what it checks, the mapping, making sure the mapping is okay. That's fine. Now it's doing a cache clearance. Okay, now it's going to be doing the big boy tests. So, and unfortunately this script does take a while. Because what it's going to do now is it's actually going to run the APIs once it does the clearance. And the APIs are obviously going to do a HTTP request. And that will then touch the database. So for every test in the API test suite, we drop the database and then we build the database back up from a given point in time. So here we go, code set run is going to run all the tests. So we've got 72 API tests. So this will unfortunately take a while. Unfortunately. We're probably talking 5 minutes. So that's always a good thing to see. The first one has worked. And yeah, these aren't unit tests. These are API tests. They are, I guess you would call them acceptance tests, because they are tests. They're actually making an API call and then checking the response. In fact, I'll as these go, I might as well show you what they're doing because they do take so long. I kind of mentioned that we have the schemas, right? These schemas are the schemas that return the response of the API. So for example, this one for example has attributes. So these are the how it's sort of translated or transformed. The response is transformed. So the creation date, for instance, is transformed using the date atom format, whereas the slugs and the name, we just return what they are. And then these are all dealt with in the controller. So we've got the APIs up here. So let's say, for example, the API course, this one. So if I was to get all courses by a specific type, then I would do /type. This would then find all by the package type that we've supplied. So either defaulting in free. I think there's premium as well. Free or premium. And then what it's doing is it's encoding the response as JSON back. And it's doing this through a process. And there is a JSON encoder for each type of I guess entity or model, I suppose you would call it. So this one is the one for the course. So you set the specific schemas. It's using a plugin or a bundle. It's not Nelmio. It's something else. Anyway, so you pass in the schemas. A little quirk, you also have to pass in the proxy. So this is the entity that maps to the core schema, or the entity to the schema. And then here are all the fields that you set for the response, and also the other fields, the subfields of the other mapping bits that you would like. You can also set some includes, because this is using the JSON API schema, and then you run the process, which is going to return the encoded instance. It's going to return the encoded data. Anyway, that will basically turn into something similar to this. If I went into tests, if I looked at API, you can see there's a bunch of tests here. We had a look at course, for instance, course index test. So these aren't unit tests; they are CEST tests. Okay, so for instance, the one I just was talking about, the premium and the free. So this is the response. This is the request. Sorry. So we send a GET request to this URL, and then we are making sure that we have a common success, making sure that the response code is okay, and we are also in some others. Let's take a look at this one's a bigger one. So this is doing a post request. So I want to register correct details with a free account, and a free account. So you pass in a username, email, password, and a selected package, and you post that with the encoded data. And then the test is to say, I see in response code that it's HTTP okay, and then I see response matches a JSON type of an access token and expires in a token type. So I've got a lot of tests around here. Let's do, here we go. So this is checking the JSON type. So I've just gone API courses and passed in the UUID. And then off the back of this, we should get the JSON, which has data. In there we have attributes, and in the attributes we have title, subtitle, duration, and so on and so forth. And here we can actually check the type that's returned. So for instance, the external URL is a string, and it is of the format of a URL, or it's null. So this is what all these API tests are doing. The stream's dropped. I'm not having much luck today in terms of the stream. Don't know why. I just apologize. It's back. Okay, so yeah, this is the one I just talked about, the get all free, get all premium. So I'm actually glad to see that all of these are passing, because I did think that changing those schemas would have a negative impact to all of this. So this is kind of my belt and braces sort of check. This make tests, and what I'm thinking is getting this running on like an internal build server here periodically, like say once every 2 hours or something. So as I develop, I would be developing against, say, the unit tests, and then I would be running this every 2 hours whenever a commit's been made to a particular branch, to just ensure that I haven't actually broken any of the actual APIs. So, I mean, what are we at now when we get to code coverage? Are we still at 58? Yeah, we're still at 58. So it kind of dips and dives. Sometimes it's 60, sometimes it's not. It depends on whether I'm removing code or not. One thing I should say though is that the actual API tests and the integration tests, when we get to them, I haven't actually set it up to do code coverage. So there's no like remote code coverage being captured, which is a shame, because it would be nice to see how much of this is tested in you know, when I run all the tests, every single one. We have 300 unit tests, 72 API tests, so that's 372, and I think we've got like 8 or so integration tests. So with the integration tests, we've got database, repository, Stripe, and validator. So these are actually using the services such as you know, Doctrine, to actually make database calls. So we're finding one by the user ID that we're passing in here. This is using provider, which is down here. So these are all the IDs that are set in the test data. And it's just making sure that these can actually be found. We have this one here, for instance. This is instantiating a new user, setting the username, password, and email address, and then saving that, persisting it, and then making sure that we can find it again. Which is a handy little test to have in case, you know, when you do an upgrade and you just want to make sure that you can actually still access and deal with the database. With the repositories, these here, we can find the external. So this is running at find all external, making sure that we have more than 0 returned. So this is an actual custom method, find all external, which is this. Create query builder. So this will run all of this. So if this was screwed up for whatever reason, if I did the query wrong, then that would fail. So that's how I'm testing database calls. Stripe's a bit different because this is actually making Stripe requests, as you can see. Same with, so this is creating database this is creating customers in the back end, and then creating the customers from the, well, this is actually making an API call to the Stripe test sandbox, and then waiting for it to come back. I'm not sure about the validator. What's that doing? Just an exception that's unhandled. Okay, so this is creating a new profile, changing the password, changing the email address, and then checking whether or not the does email exist. And I've got a feeling this is going to do find user by email. Yes, it is. So this is going to do an actual database call itself. So these are more high-level tests, and you can see that there's a bunch of stuff in here, data providers and whatnot. No. I'm certainly not French, but I certainly use Symfony. Let's see. Where are we at with this? Okay, we're still running those tests. No problem. I'm glad that they're all passing. So here we go. It's doing a Stripe customer payment now. So it's actually doing a test payment into Stripe. So this is actually going to create a this is actually going off to Stripe. So if Stripe goes down, then these tests break, essentially. So now we're testing invalid payloads. So invalid payments. And invalid payment methods. So I guess that would be in here, right? So we do API, Stripe customer payment, and we're making an API request to our API, which is then going off to make an API request, you know, like a proxy almost. Okay, so this is trying to do payments, and we're checking for different status codes. So unauthorized, method not allowed, so trying to access this using a GET request rather than a POST request. This is doing it where the payment method ID is null. And yeah, I won't go any further than that because it's got the actual payment plan ID and stuff of the test account, I should say. None of this is production. Certainly don't commit production bits and pieces in. Okay, I think it's starting to get to the bottom of it. So we're now on tag, which I think is, yeah, it's the last one. If it's done all that in order. So hopefully it'll hit this and then it'll go on to the integration tests. Yes. So I don't have any functional tests, but I do have 16 integrations. So these are checking the database. A little bit quicker than the other ones because they're not having to do HTTP requests. And now it's going to do all the unit tests that we were playing with before. All of those. And I'm so happy that they're all passing. All that change. All that refactoring. Okay, so this stuff is really important. So we've got 388 tests in total, 611 assertions. I always get that word wrong. Assertions. It took 16 minutes to complete in total. Now, obviously, I'll just be running mostly the unit tests. But if anything major changes, I'll certainly run the APIs. And certainly when I do merge this into wherever, I will make sure that I run everything again. Okay, but these things are super important because I'm still running Symfony 4 and 4.4, and I would like to upgrade to Symfony 5. Now there is a lot of stuff that I need to wait on for especially in the FOSS user stuff, because they need to upgrade some of their packages before I can upgrade. But this one looks like a new one on me. These are deprecations. So there's a bunch of stuff with codeception, PHP unit. I am aware of all of this stuff. Apparently this will all be fixed in another version of PHP unit, or the unit bridge. Apparently. This one though is new. I haven't seen this one before. FOSS user bundle model user interface. This is why the testing is so important, because you're touching different areas of the code, and as the tests go, it's capturing those deprecated warnings. So you are then aware of what needs to change before you do the upgrade. Otherwise, you're just going to be upgrading blind, and you don't know what code needs to be changed, right? It's simple. So here, the FOSS user bundle user interface extends Symfony component security core. Now, unfortunately, I don't know which test actually did that, so there wasn't any deprecations with the unit tests. So obviously a unit test didn't make this. I'm guessing a API test did. FOSS user bundle user interface extends the advanced user interface. This is deprecated since 4.1. So this is obviously not in my code. This is in the FOSS code. I'm guessing if we had a look at that, so if we did, let's see here, manager, is it manager? It's a model, user interface, so this would be entity. Let's just grab that for a second. And in PHP Storm, Command O, paste that in. Okay, is it this one? User interface. As base interface. Let's click on extends base interface. Okay, let's click on that one. Ah, yes. So you can see that line there. That's saying that this is deprecated. If I click on here, we should have it deprecated since Symfony 4.01. So again, something else I can't really deal with until they change it. Now, I guess what I could do is I've got in my make file, I've got cat's make file here. We have a little command called vendor, where are we? Vendor update. We also have vendor install, and I think there's another one called dry run, or no, vendor check. Is it vendor check? Somewhere. Vendor check. So this is going to be doing a Docker exec API composer update dry run. So I could run this to see if there's any updates, and I haven't ran this for a couple of days, so there probably will be. So we'll do make vendor check. So this is running dry run, so this won't actually do anything. It will just print out what has been changed. And there's probably going to be a bunch of stuff, because I haven't done this in, say, a week. Probably a half a week. But it'd be interesting to see if there's anything in FOSS. Of course, I would. It's also interesting to see if there's anything, if there's another version, right? So, like, what's my version constraint on Composer? Wherever that lives, composer.json. We are running the Friends of Symfony user bundle, and we're running 2.1.2. So if I go over to Packagist, Friends of Symfony user bundle, it is 2.1.2. That is the latest. So no, they haven't changed it yet. But it'll be interesting to see if there's anything else that comes out of this. I don't know why it's taking so long. It's probably my internet connection. Well, it is actually having to do a lot of stuff, isn't it? Because it's having to have a look at all the dependencies. But yeah, okay, so Symfony Flex, AWS, PHP unit code coverage, PHP documenter, codeception module REST, some security advisories, and the Zen framework bridge. Okay, so nothing in here I don't think will change the those deprecations, which is a shame, but that's just the way it is. I'll just have to wait. And oops. Let me scroll up. Oh, yeah, so that's pretty much it, isn't it? This one here is an interesting one because I'm using the FOSS server, OAuth server, and it requires the twig to be installed. So I need to wait for that one to change as well. I think that's the same with this one. I don't know about that one. I'm not sure. I'll have to have a look at that one. But these test suites and stuff, I think they get changed when the PHP unit bridge gets updated, I believe. But anyway, they're not actually specific to Symfony. They're specific to Codeception and PHP unit. So really the only ones that I have to worry about before I upgrade to PHP 5 is... Symfony 5, beg your pardon, is this one, this one, this one, and this one. So really what I should do is mark these as bugs to fix. Like if this was in like an agile type process, these would be like subtasks onto on the epic of upgrade to Symfony 5. I guess all I can do at the moment is just keep writing tests and see if I can unearth anything else. Hey, anyway, it's 23:11 here in the UK, and I'm going to go and grab some sleep. Thank you ever so much, everybody, for watching. It's been great. Thank you also to everybody who's been chatting away and asking questions. It's been fantastic. I'm going to dive off, and the next stream is on Sunday at 14:30 British Summer Time on Sunday. But in the meantime, go check out the podcast, because we have... There's the link, podcast. We've got Chris Skin on tomorrow, and he is an agile delivery lead, and we're talking about agile, and we're doing a deep dive into that. So that will come out some point tomorrow, and that will be on howtocodewell.fm, or of course just follow along on Twitter at howtocodewell, and I'll let you know when that's up. But thank you ever so much, and I'll speak to you again soon. Cheers. Happy coding, everyone. Bye-bye.